There we have it. It's Thursday. Thirsty Thursday, some may call it in the baseball world, but we call it another day in the world of MMA, another day in the news cycle, another round of bits and craziness. But thank goodness, because Psycho Stu, now conscious, communicating, talking a little bit. Thank goodness for this. We've been praying, we've been hoping all week. We've been talking about the story all week long. Psycho Stu, of course. Wow. To overcome something like that, to get beat on like that, and to now be up, awake, alert. Glad to see it. Glad to hear it. Whew. Rajah Jackson, we don't know what's happening with him. We're not going to be talking about this for too much longer today. Unless you guys have questions, throw it down there in the comments. Perfectly fine with that. But in terms of the overall story, it's kind of coming to a close in terms of, listen, at this point, all I'm really caring about is that this guy's okay, right? That he hasn't taken too much damage, that he can be as much back to normal as possible. We'll see what happens with Rajah. We'll see what happens with Rampage, and we'll just have to let it play out the way it plays out, whether it goes to court, whether he's on trial, whether he goes to jail, whether he gets any consequences from this. That is beyond our realm of understanding at this point. We don't quite know why he hasn't been arrested. Of course, there's footage out there. There is all kinds of evidence. They need to do something to this young man, and they just seem to not be doing it. I don't know why. The wrestlers involved, the promotion involved, seem to be trying to cover it up potentially, or at least shift blame elsewhere. But thankfully, very fortunate that Psycho Stu, the wrestler who was pummeled by Rajah Jackson, is awake, alert, talking. Not sure to what extent that is. Is he having full conversations? How much communication is going on? He does look like he's got a bit of a roughed up jaw, a bit of a messed up nose there. He doesn't look too bad in this picture, but I'm sure some of the brain damage there, pretty severe. Pretty severe, but thank you guys for tuning in. It's a Thursday. We'll get this thing rolling right away. The best show, the best audience. Let's get things rolling right now. Of course, big news there for Psycho Stu. He is doing okay, but we got some even more interesting news coming from another crazy character in the world of MMA. That's right. That's right. Sean Strickland, Deshaun Strickland, some may know him as Deshaun. Sean. You know, this guy's got to go into anger management now. He says, December, Vegas, get me on that card. Got anger management in November. Suspension is up in November, that is. And we could be seeing Sean Strickland fighting very, very soon. Who will it be against? It was likely speculated, or at least likely thought that, or at least commonly thought, let me get my words straight, pardon that. It was common knowledge that we figured maybe the rumor is that it's going to be Israel Adesanya, right? That's the rumor that was getting floated out there. Izzy rematch, winner of that one likely gets a title shot against Khamzat. I mean, we don't know now. We don't quite know now. Sean Strickland, of course, sitting within that top 5 of the middleweight division. Lots of young up-and-comers, lots of new kids on the block fighting for their shot. Of course, Caio Borralho and Nasruddin Imavov coming up in a couple of weeks. Renier de Ridder's going to be taking on Fluffy. That was the big news last week. That's an interesting one. Some guys that have been around quite a while, but finally getting their chance to potentially lodge their spot in the titles picture, cement their place as a number 1 contender. Sean Strickland a little bit out of it now. Israel Adesanya a little bit out of it now after that knockout loss to Imavov and the loss to Dricus du Plessis. But either of these guys have the bad blood brewing between themselves and Khamzat Chimaev. They could easily jump back in there, and you could obviously see that from a marketing perspective. From the UFC's perspective, throw it on Paramount Plus, throw it on a pay-per-view. It does big numbers because they're big, popular guys. Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Khamzat, they're all big, popular guys. It's possible. And to deny that, you're being a little silly. Listen, it's not always a straight meritocracy. We've been talking about this all darn week, right? Not always straight meritocracy when it comes to Corey Anderson. We just spoke with that yesterday. Now here today, we find ourselves on the edge of who's Sean Strickland going to fight next, right? December, November. Does he get to step in late notice? Something happens with Khamzat early January? You never know. Sean Strickland's always floating around. He's a big name, big mouth kind of guy. He says we can't have a terrorist as a champion and agrees to complete anger management courses. Well, we're ready to put this one to bed and get back in the cage. Can't have a terrorist as a champion. Oh boy, Sean. Oh boy. Sadly, I think I'm the only one to change that. Appreciate the commission for getting this done. Anger management, here I come. Of course, Sean was facing 6 months of a good grief. Pardon the fumbling and bumbling over my words there. Sean Strickland did say, or was, that's not the right word at all. Still can't get the words out properly. Sean Strickland's initial sentencing was for 6 months. Now, he could reduce that down to 4.5 months if he took some anger management classes. Of course, this was similar to the Arman Tsarukyan issue back last year. Of course, he went out there, punched a fan. Sean Strickland attacked a man in the cage during a regional MMA promotional fight, helping out his training partner, or so he thought. It was actually just him getting offended, right? We remember all that mess a couple weeks ago. Of course, you're going to take that reduced sentence, take the anger management, whatever you need to do to reduce that sentence so you can get in there and get your fights going, get your money flowing. That's what Sean Strickland was looking to do there. Obviously, he was going to take that deal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sean Strickland, kind of a smart guy who likes to stay active. Of course, he hadn't been too active as of late, but now he's getting back in there, trying to stay active, trying to keep his name out there, trying to keep his name relevant because, of course, there is that bad blood between Khamzat, even though they used to train together a little bit here and there. Anyway, I'm going to know what you guys think. Sean Strickland getting back in there December, November. That's when he wants to fight. When do you guys expect that Sean Strickland will be fighting next? I fully expect that it will be December. No doubt there in my mind. It will likely be one of those guys in the top 10. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Israel Adesanya, if he's able to wait out now that those top 4 guys have been matched up a little bit. Yep, not going to be Apollo Costa, who's a bit on the rise as well. Not going to be him. They just fought. Lackluster fight there. But speaking of coming back, speaking of suspensions and anger management, Arman Tsarukyan, yes, that's right. He says via Instagram that he will soon be fighting again. Of course, he just signed to compete in a grappling match this September over in Russia, somewhere out that way. But he says, or at least is alluding to the fact that here's an image of his locker during a UFC event, that very soon he will be returning. Of course, the last time this guy fought was all the way back at UFC 300, April of 2024. It has been a long, what has it been? 14, 15, 16 months at this point? Arman, got to get you in the cage, my friend. Listen, if we're talking straight meritocracy, I throw this guy right in a title fight with Ilia Topuria. However, it is not a straight meritocracy. He's a pretty popular guy, but he does not garner the numbers of a Paddy Pimblett, of a Justin Gaethje. And unfortunately, it sounds like they could be potentially throwing Justin Gaethje in there for the title shot, even though, in my opinion, he is by far the least deserving of those 3 men, Arman, Justin, and Paddy. Paddy, you could do it because of the numbers, maybe not the wins, but definitely the numbers. Arman has the better wins. Of course, he just beat Charles Oliveira, who Ilia Topuria just beat for the title, right? So that would make sense from a meritocracy standpoint, but that's not it. And he's done a lot of bad stuff, a lot of issues being caused by Arman Tsarukyan. Of course, attacked that fan at 300, had to face some kind of a suspension near the end of 2024, and then he fell out due to injury early this year, UFC 311, and now he's not been taking the fights he's getting offered, just causing issues left, right, and center. But what's interesting and what has been a topic of conversation over the last day or two is that Khabib doesn't see Ilia Topuria having much of a chance against Arman Tsarukyan. Very interesting there. Of course, Arman Tsarukyan was supposed to take on Islam Makhachev, the protege, training partner, whatever you want to call it, of Khabib for many, many years. Let's take a listen to what Khabib has to say. Read for yourselves if you don't speak Russian, whatever language you're speaking. But here it is. You can read it for yourselves. We'll take a listen as well.
Просто не зайдет.
Не зайдет, слишком уже есть бои, он уже может посмотреть, изучить. Я например, 80/20 я вижу победителем Армана. Я считаю, что его борьба, его прессинг, его говорить, это тоже надо учитывать. Да. Он выше него почти на 10 сантиметров, если не ошибаюсь. И он больше него весом, и в день боя он будет больше него. И, конечно, борьба, она всегда рулила. Особенно, когда такие бои бывают. Все мы знаем, какая борьба у Холлоуэя и какая борьба у последнего Чарльза Оливера. У них ее практически нет. Они ударники. Они пошли на рожон и хапнули свое. А человек, который взял ногу, поборолся, взял корпус, поборолся. С такими он не дрался, он дрался со всеми ударниками. Волконовский не борется, другие не борются. С кем он дрался? Просто назови хоть одного, хоть чуть-чуть, даже не 50%, который хоть 20% использует борьбу. Интересный бой будет, я считаю.
Listen. It's hard to disagree with that in general terms. However, Charles Oliveira and Bryce Mitchell, very good grapplers, right? Very dangerous submission artists. Pretty sure that Ilia Topuria overcame those two guys, even though he faced some danger on the ground in both of those fights. Was on the ground with both those guys. Can Arman Tsarukyan out-wrestle him? Can he use that ground and pound effectively? Of course, Khabib's not entirely incorrect, but 80% in Arman's favor? It's hard to give somebody only 20% chance when they have that kind of boxing ability, that kind of striking acumen and technique with the power. He's stocky. He likely can withstand the takedowns. If he gets taken down, how easy is it going to be for Arman to secure a hold of him? Ilia's a pretty stocky and strong dude, much like an Arman Tsarukyan. 80 to 20% in Arman's favor is a little bit crazy. And I'm not the only person that thinks that either. Listen to the wrestler himself, one of the best wrestlers to ever compete in MMA, Daniel Cormier. Listen, I can't say he's entirely incorrect, but 80-20 is a bit of a stretch, and I'm not the only one saying that. I'm not the only one thinking that. I'm sure you guys are as well. That's a bit of a stretch coming from a champion, talking about another very dominant champion who has finished the likes of a Max Holloway, Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira, some of the best fighters to be doing it right now. Take a listen, DC. Let's see what he has to say.
80-20 is crazy, though. Come on, man. 80-20 is hard when anyone's fighting. 80-20, the only time 80-20 could be thought of in fights has been in the case of Khabib and John Jones. They're the only people that have gone through this whole thing without losing. They are the only two. So you could have possibly said, well, yeah, it's probably 80% that guy's way because they never lose. But guess who else hasn't lost? Ilia Topuria. So to put him on the opposite side of that 80-20 is crazy to me. I don't believe that for 1 second. I really do disagree with Khabib on that one. That's one that there is not a guy in the world that I believe is going to beat Ilia Topuria 8 out of 10 times. That's just the truth.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Who are you picking against Ilia Topuria right now? You could pick Islam Makhachev against him. You could. And you might think that Islam runs the table on him. But I don't think that Islam beats him 8 times out of 10. Maybe he beats him 6 times. Maybe he beats him 5 times. Hard to say 8 or 9 times go Islam's way, Arman's way, anybody's way, except for a much larger fighter who's just going to completely nullify the size, the danger factor. Nobody's got boxing like Ilia Topuria from what it seems like, right? From what it seems like, Max Holloway, one of the best boxers. Volkanovski, one of the best strikers. Charles Oliveira, very dangerous in the stand-up. They had almost nothing for him. Almost nothing for him. They had their chances, and they couldn't put him away. They couldn't really do anything because he has that one touch of death power. That's very dangerous. It's hard to pick a guy 8 times. It's hard to pick against a guy 8 times, right? Doesn't make any sense to say that. I understand where he's coming from. I think Arman has a chance to win. I think Arman's probably got the best chance to beat him. I'm not even ruling out the possibility of Arman winning the fight. but it's really tough to say that Arman beats him 8 times out of 10. That's rough. That's quite a stretch. Completely disagree with Khabib there, even if in general premise he's not fully incorrect per se. Now, Ali Abdelaziz, of course, the famed, acclaimed manager of many of the Dagestanis, of many fighters in the UFC, very, very close-knit ties to Dana White, to the UFC. Seems like he's working against the fighters half the time. Of course, his fighter, Aaron Pico, just recently knocked out. He also gave an interview thanks to Submission Radio. Shout out to them over there. Said a lot of interesting stuff. We'll start with this. Ali explained that he has rules when it comes to fighters returning after a knockout. Abdelaziz said that when somebody gets knocked out like that, he won't book them a fight for at least 6 months, stressing that it's not healthy for a fighter to go out like that and try to come back too early. Now, this is hard to say that I can pull up a fact or pull up a fighter that has come back within 6 months, but I can guarantee you some of these guys have been knocked out. Some of them have been hurt and come back within that 6-month time span as managed by Ali Abdelaziz. I don't have a fighter pulled up for you ready to go, but I suspect that this is not entirely true. But of course, his big name fighters like an Aaron Pico, like an Islam Makhachev, right? He's going to take care of them the way he needs to. Justin Gaethje, of course, took a lot of time off after the Max Holloway loss, got knocked out brutally, right? So this is okay. I like this coming from Ali. I don't like the way he runs his business. I don't like the ties. I don't like the corruption that he's involved in, the conspiracy involving the UFC, and how good some of his fighters get placed around the UFC rankings, how they get placed around the MMA world. This guy has some interesting ties to the world of MMA. Very suspicious figure, but anyway. Aside from that, he continued on during this interview, speaking about a potential fight between Islam Makhachev and Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev just got the belt off of DDP. He's got one belt under his resume, right? He's got one championship fight on the docket, right? He's got something coming up soon, hopefully soon. Is it going to be the Abu Dhabi return? Very unlikely. Will it be an early 2026 return? That is the likely what's just around the corner. But Khamzat, Ali, all these guys talking crazy about Khamzat moving down to 170. That is very, very unlikely to ever happen. Let's listen to what he has to say. One thing that I can't say I disagree with him on might just be this.
This will never happen. First of all, Khamzat is too big. I don't think he can ever make welterweight. And in a way, like these guys, like they know each other. I don't think they're from the same region. And I honestly, these fights make absolutely no sense. I think if Khamzat go up and want to fight as light heavyweight, maybe make more sense. But in a way, Khamzat have so many contenders to clean out the division before even he thinking about moving to a different weight division. You know what I'm saying? You have to be fair to all the contenders. And I think he will defend his titles. But, and every guy's going to bring a different challenge for him. And now he have the title, and we're going to see how Khamzat will handle it. I think he's growing now. I think he have good people around him. I think he's going to do very well. But also, you have Fluffy is a killer. You have RDR is just a very hard guy to fight. You have MMA.
So he continues on to list some more guys off in the middleweight division. I agree with him. I think Khamzat, if he's going to go for 2 belts, got to defend a bunch of guys at middleweight, move up to light heavyweight. That's where you could do it. Fine. Even though he's not a huge guy, he's not making 170 again. And I do not understand the whole aspect of like, this guy's from the same region as this guy, and we can't fight because they're in the same region. I understand not fighting a guy who you train with on a daily basis, who's in your gym. Completely get that, even though I don't quite understand the logic there either. I mean, you guys are both fighting for a title, both fighting for big time money, trying to provide for your families, make some money. You've got no real ties or connections with the guy. I don't understand why you couldn't fight him. I don't quite understand what the religion, what the area, what the region has to do with it. It doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't understand that. I feel like that's quite a bit of a cop-out many of these guys take. Oh, I trained with this guy one time. I shook this guy's hand, and he was fairly friendly to me one time, and therefore I can't ever fight him. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Any sense. Can't fathom it. Don't understand it. Whatever. Anyway, we continue on. Ali also confirms, at least the speculation, the rumor is it will be JDM versus Islam. Of course, this is really the only logical fight to make at this point. A lot of the welterweight title contenders are booked up, right? Looking to be booked up potentially. We'll see what happens with them. We don't know exactly, but they're potentially booked up. They're potentially all taken care of, all tied up with somebody else. Of course, we're waiting for a few more to come through and develop, through the scheduling, develop a bit of a schedule here, because we're just hearing rumors right now. A lot of guys rumored to be fighting here and there at the end of the year. We want to have that schedule developing constantly. So we'll hear what the news is on a lot of those fights. But he says that Islam JDM is getting finalized, will be taking place later this year, 2025. Will it be November? Will it be the December pay-per-view? Let's take a listen.
Speaking of Islam, are we any closer to getting an update on this fight happening in November? Like, from everything that you're working on right now, is that still the likely time frame for this JDM fight, Madison Square Garden?
Listen, at the end of the day, the fight is done, but I always respectful to the promotion. It is their job. They didn't announce the fight. But I know this, by end of the year, Australia going to have no champions. I think Volker will remain the champion. I think Mandalena will lose. And I have a lot of respect for Mandalena. I think he's a very nice guy.
Pause. Now, I always suspect a lot of these fighters are not the sharpest tools in the shed. I suspect their managers also likely not the smartest guys. They just have the connections. So therefore, they become managers and somehow get to negotiate. Shout out to Tiki Gosen right there, because the guy's a mess. Anyway, he said Australia will have no champions by the end of the year, but then says Volk will defend the belt. Anyway, we'll let him continue.
And I have a lot of respect for Mandalena. I think he's a very nice guy. I think he's a great fighter. I think, he's going to be a very tough fight for Islam. But I believe Islam have all the tools to beat him. But in reality, it's a fight. It's a game of inches. Anything can happen.
Hey, just speaking of Islam,
So let me know what you guys think. Islam JDM, who gets the win in that one? Craig Jones and others have touted JDM's scrambling ability. Of course, he's likely going to be the bigger guy in there. Of course, he's the more natural welterweight. He's not a huge welterweight, but he's a bigger guy, going to have a thicker trunk, bigger legs, able to maybe withstand some of the wrestling that Islam poses. But some of those trips, sweeps are very dangerous from Islam. And of course, the striking of Islam is nothing to sneeze at either. Just because he comes from that region, just because he comes from Dagestan, does not mean he's a predominant grappler. He's very good in the grappling realm, but his striking is also very, very high level. And speaking of Russians, and speaking of guys from that area, from that country, PFL heavyweight Vadim Nemkov has signed a 2-year deal with the PFL and mentions he has a fight scheduled for November. Looking ahead to this, PFL gathering quite a few names here, holding down a couple of names. Of course, Nemkov was likely being contacted by the UFC, likely offered some fights. Of course, the guy is involved with Fedor Emelianenko, who is famous for never having fought within the UFC or under the UFC banner. This guy put up quite a fight in that realm. And, well, Nemkov has done the same thing. Says that the PFL offered him nearly double what the UFC was offering, which is very interesting. Here's Don Davis, of course, in charge of much the PFL running days today. Top heavyweight Vadim Nemkov is re-signed with the PFL through the end of 2027. Nemkov is a consensus top 10 world-ranked fighter. On the rise, potential fights for him in PFL: Francis Ngannou, Renan Ferreira, Oleg Popov. New signing incoming. Who could that be? We don't know. Probably nobody of interest, let's be honest. It better be Francis Ngannou. If this guy's going to be taking fights up at heavyweight, of course, Vadim Nemkov, famous for being a light heavyweight fighter, has fought the likes of Corey Anderson and Yuri Prohaska, to name just a few popular guys. Francis Ngannou, really the only fight to put together. This is the only fight for Francis in terms of name value. Might as well just do it right now, right here, today. PFL Africa, are they going to throw a card together for November? Maybe this is what that is. If it's not, I would be very disappointed, because that's the kind of shit you want to put together. You want to have Francis fighting on the African cards, not pulling this hoodwinking bullshit that he is right now. That's a little bit frustrating to see, but you know what? It is what it is. Unfortunately, fighters are an absolute mess, and you can't trust them, and they're all in the business for themselves. And listen, Francis is doing his own thing. Nemkov's going to do his own thing and stay within the PFL, make some good money like a Dakota Ditcheva. If they're going to throw all the cash in the world at these guys, I don't blame them for taking the money at all, even if they're not going to be taking on the hardest level of competition. Of course, we continue on. Carlos Prates. This guy called for a fight just a few weeks ago, right? UFC 319. Got that fantastic spinning elbow finish over Jeff Neal in round 1 of their fight. He said he wants to be on the Rio card, and it sounds like that might not be happening. Now, of course, we don't know for sure. It's all hearsay, all rumor, all speak, right? He hasn't officially come out and said that fight's not happening in Rio. But by the looks of that card, the way they're stacking it with some Gabriel Bonfils, Randy Browns, that could easily be the co-main event. Meanwhile, they want Carlos Prates on a pay-per-view to sell that thing and get those numbers boosted through the roof because this guy's absolutely electrifying in the cage. My goodness. I mean, the UFC has changed their mind, and he is expected to fight in November at UFC 322, making a quick turnaround just a couple of pay-per-views away. Very excited to see this guy get back in the cage. Who's he going to be taking on? Will it be Leon Edwards? Leon Edwards, of course, the other day, last week, said that he'd only be fighting on pay-per-views because he's a former champion. Of course, that's a little bit of a bullshit take there from Leon. But you know what? If that's true, if that's what's being negotiated, then fair play to him. That's going to be a tough one for Leon Edwards. Carlos Prates has that touch of death in his left and right hands. I mean, my goodness, this guy's got spinning elbows, spinning back kicks. This guy is dangerous everywhere. He's got a toolbox deeper than your dad's. I mean, why would we not want to see this guy on pay-per-view? A little bit sad that we won't get to see him in Rio because I would have liked to see him in the hometown crowd, but maybe they'll be doing a pay-per-view in Rio in Brazil next year that he can join up on and complete that card, drag it out, make it more interesting because those last couple of Brazilian pay-per-views have not been the best. This card upcoming in October, pretty exciting though, I will say. I will admit that. Now, got a couple more events going on this weekend that we have to take a look at. One of them being CJI 2. CJI 2. Craig Jones Invitational. Last year, the absolutely bombastic, crazy event that lit the world of grappling on fire was CJI number 1. It was Craig Jones versus a woman, man versus woman. There was a tournament, 2 large weight divisions. There was a bigger class and a smaller class. Put on some of the best grappling matches you've ever seen. Of course, they had the pit. They had everything that you're looking for in terms of innovation to the grappling world. Now, this year, they're doing it quintet style. So there's teams on teams on teams. The main event was supposed to be Craig Jones and Gable Steveson. Gable Steveson now making his MMA debut in a couple of weeks. He's pulled out of this one due to turf toe. And the rumor is it will be Chael Sonnen stepping in, but nothing is confirmed yet. What is crazy is that Gordon Ryan is now going back and forth with Craig Jones. Could this be the surprise, shock, and all that we've been waiting for? Because the Gable Steveson pullout is a little bit suspicious. Could it be? Could it be? Crazy conspiracy theory, crazy rumor. I'm going to throw it out there. Could Gordon Ryan be stepping in here, causing some controversy, stepping in the night of the main event? Craig Jones walks out and says, "We have a big surprise for you," and walks out Gordon Ryan. Could that be it? I don't know. I highly doubt it, but man, that would be fucking epic. That would be absolutely insanity. That would do absolutely huge numbers. This is already going to pull in hundreds of thousands of viewers over the course of the weekend. It's going to be free on YouTube, I believe. But here's what Gordon Ryan has to say. Gable pulling out of the main event of CJI 2 and then fighting less than 2 weeks later on UFC Fight Pass. Such a baller move by the UFC, who has been attacked nonstop for unknown reasons by CJI. I bet Craig Jones never put a pullout clause in there for Gable, which would penalize him for pulling out. I'm sure there wasn't. Otherwise, Gable wouldn't have pulled out. I'm sure Gable read through the contract before signing, thanks to the advocacy about the matter from Craig Jones. Of course, Gordon Ryan, Gable Steveson, some of these guys, I like them. They're fun characters, but are they really the sharpest tools in the shed? Are they the managers that are reading through the contracts themselves? I highly doubt it. Now, Craig Jones can't find any real jiu-jitsu guy because he surely will lose like that anyway. Won't have time to find another joke match in time. A man can't win at anything. At least I'm still untouchable. Wow, that's Gordon Ryan speaking there. But of course, they said, Chael Sonnen, the undefeated, undisputed, could he be stepping in? That would be a big-time move there. Chael's a popular guy. That would pull in some big numbers. Would it be an interesting grappling match? I don't know. It's hard to say. But this, I loved this post they put out the other day. Very, very funny here. Love this. Take a listen. Pretty fun. Just good stuff. Craig Jones, all this promotion he's doing, really good, really solid, pumping up the numbers, getting the promotion going, making everybody excited who's paying attention to this stuff. This is my favorite post they put out in a couple of weeks.
You mean to tell me a nigga that get trained by John Jones and Gordon Ryan bag out the fight with a turf toe injury? What the fuck type of shit is that? Nobody cared that you was scared, bro. It's cool to admit you was scared because niggas was finna come up a bag, or if you had all my money on Craig Jones, is you crazy? This unknown Chanel Sanoan, I don't even know who that is. Like, y'all got anybody trying to scrap my boy? Can we get some real comp? Damn. Or let a point, nigga, I'm locking in YouTube Live. Nigga, I got all my money on Craig Jones with the knockout first rounder. Ain't no way in the world y'all thought.
Craig Jones knockout round 1 over Chanel Sonnen. Wow, this is going to be a great matchup. Can't wait. Anyway, we move right along. Of course, Tony Ferguson competing in a boxing event against Salt Poppy. The event headlined by Luke Rockhold and Darren Till. On the undercard, Tony Ferguson, Salt Poppy, Dylan Dennis also taking place on the card. I mean, take a look at this. Oh boy, this is boxing, Tony. This is boxing.
And that's when the fight changes. I was master managed the Salt Poppy on Saturday night. A massive, monumental opportunity in this.
All right, where's the boxing, Tony? This is what we want to see. We don't want to see you get your ass beat by a fake fighter. I don't want to see you get beat up by an influencer, man. And I'm afraid that may be what's happening. So he's speaking again about Khabib. We mentioned him earlier. Tony's got some things to say about Khabib himself. Of course, he can't ever stop talking about Khabib. Tony, I don't know if that fight would have gone your way. I'm one of the biggest Tony Ferguson fans out there. Everybody loves Tony. Everybody was supporting Tony on the come up through his win streak for years and years and years, who wanted the Khabib fight to happen. And I don't know how it would have went for him, but he still is holding on to it. That's what he's thinking about. That's what he's looking at, even though he's got a big boxing match on his hands this week. Oh, Tony.
I know you mentioned the build-up to this. You did an interview a few weeks ago about the time when Khabib confronted you at a hotel in front of your family. Is that the closest you've ever felt to having personal hatred to someone? Would Khabib be the only person, or was that still not enough to bring hatred out of you?
I wouldn't call it hatred. He's still fathead in my book. You know, he's still Khabib on his world tour. When it goes into it, his dad was the one that saved him from some real ass whoopings and just getting bloody and stitched up and all this other stuff. He did some foolish things. I mean, he went to New York and he made some homeless do push-ups and threw money at him like they were strippers, which is ridiculous. You know, him and his cousin Makachev. When it goes into it, I like to be able to look after the people that can't look after themselves, and I've always done that since I was little. This Saturday come from with Nathaniel and Assault. You know what I mean? I don't have to go out there and intimidate him. It's not my bag to be able to do that. I carry a certain presence with myself whenever I show up.
Tony Ferguson growing into quite a man all of a sudden. He's getting more mature by the day. Not looking forward to that one. A little bit worried for him this weekend. I really don't want to see him lose to an influencer, but we've also got some other big events outside the world of MMA taking place with a lot of UFC veterans. Speaking of UFC guys that have been on, I don't know, a little bit less than positive side of things for the UFC. Brian Battle making a quick turnaround. He'll be fighting this weekend at the Dirty Boxing Championship 3 event. Meanwhile, Rosenstruik in the main event. Hector Lombard, Jessica Rose Clark, Phil Hawes. Lots of UFC fighters, former UFC fighters, that is. What's up, Musharraf? What's up, my guy? Welcome in. Thank you for being here. We're jumping in just at the end of the stream, my friend. Are you looking forward to this stuff? Dirty Boxing, Tony Ferguson. I mean, we got a lot of stuff outside the UFC happening this weekend. We got quite a few things to keep up with and watch out for. Of course, CJI, Dirty Boxing, the Misfits boxing as well. Mike Breeden's on this card. Chase Sherman, Alex Caceres, and then even Tyson Nam, Ricky Bandejas. He's been around the block. Lots of guys, former UFC vets on here. I mean, what do you guys think of this one? I'm excited for this card. Main card, I believe they just dropped the time down on there. I believe it's 11 p.m. Eastern, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I'm excited to watch this one. It's going to be fun. A little bit of an odd start time here, but it is what it is. We're moving right along. Musharraf, let me know what you think about this card. Let me know what you think about CJI. Let me know what you think about the Tony Ferguson taking on Salt Poppyman. Wow. What are we doing here, fellas? I mean, very interesting there. But we've got more to talk about, more than just some fights to talk about. Of course, shout out MMA On Point for putting this one out there. Who's going to be next? Of course, Volkanovski wants Lerone Murphy. He previously wanted Movsar Evloev. The rumor is don't watch CJI. I would highly recommend it. If you're interested in any kind of grappling, this is the kind of grappling you're going to want to watch out for. Chael Sonnen could be potentially facing off with Craig Jones in the main event on Sunday night. Of course, we've got a bunch of other great, talented grapplers, the likes of Eddie Bravo, B-Team, all kinds of stuff. The Danaher squad, I mean, wow, they got everybody on this CJR card. Musharraf, I would actually absolutely recommend watching it. Even if you're not a big-time jiu-jitsu fan, just tune in, watch. It's going to be some fun, great matches. It should be Movsar. Listen, I don't disagree with you. From a meritocracy standpoint, from a timeline standpoint, it should be Movsar. But Lerone Murphy made the statement. He took advantage of the opportunity, got a huge co-main event spot of the biggest pay-per-view of the year featuring Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus du Plessis. He showed out and showed up at the right time, at the right place, got a fantastic viral knockout, and that's where it's going to be. Musharraf, that CJI is going to be live on YouTube. Go ahead and follow Craig Jones. Here it is. CJI 2 is the event. Lots of fun stuff. I would highly recommend it if you're wanting to get into jiu-jitsu, if you're wanting to get into the grappling realm, try to understand what's happening in jiu-jitsu. This is the kind of event that's perfect for you. They're going to have the best commentary crew. Craig Jones, great promoter, going to make it more fun than just their typical ADCC event. Now, that's nothing to sneeze at. I get it. It's some of the best in the world, but these guys are going to put on an absolute show for you. There's big-time money on the line. There's legacy on the line. There's all kinds of who wins, who loses, how good are the teams, where do they stack up? It's teams versus teams. It's all these gyms that have rivalries going on in the world of jiu-jitsu. It's very interesting. The drama is going to get crazy this weekend. It's Saturday, Sunday, even, I believe, in the evening, so watch out for those. But yeah, Musharraf, it's hard to disagree with Movsar, but I think Lerone Murphy made such a statement, and now he's got a huge backing, got that virality behind him. They're going to push him forward because of that. Movsar, maybe he can fight the winner of Gene Silva and Diego Lopez. If he beats one of those guys, absolutely no doubt. Evloev does deserve it. He has deserved it, in my opinion, just for the win streak in terms of meritocracy. But it's not always straight meritocracy. Money is involved. Popularity is involved. It's part of the game. It's part of the game, and you can't deny that. And that's part of the frustrating bit of it, is that if he had just stayed active, if he had been more active over the past couple of years, he would easily already be fighting for the title. But instead, we're looking at probably Lerone Murphy taking on Alexander Volkanovski at the end of this year, likely December. Could it be November? That's also possible. But that'll be about it for the show here today. Musharraf, let me know if you want to talk about anything before I hop out of here. We got a couple of fight announcements. Mayra Bueno Silva, Jacqueline Cavalcante. Okay. Ricardo Ramos is back against Khan O'Flea. What else we got? But yeah, man, I would say the biggest thing you need to tune into, we got Dirty Boxing Friday afternoon, Friday evening, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. We've got Tony Ferguson, Misfits Boxing, Darren Till, Luke Rockhold, former UFC guys. They're fighting. And then, of course, CJI Saturday and Sunday will be live on YouTube. Very excited for this one right here. Watch CJI live free on the B-Team YouTube channel. It's going to do huge numbers. We're looking at 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 people viewing some of these matches at a time last year. And I'm looking for even bigger and better things. We'll take a look back at Twitter to see if there's been any breaking news as of late before we jump right out of here. Sean Strickland, of course, wants his fight back. We already spoke about that at the beginning of the show. You can rewind the tape. Chael Sonnen talking about John Jones. All right. He's always talking about John Jones. When is he not talking about John Jones? Rumored fight, Walter Walker, Muhammad Usman, Kevin, real Kev. I don't know. Crazy Kev. Take it with a grain of salt. Magomed Ankalaev yesterday, of course, we talked about it. Talking about moving up to heavyweight potentially. What else we got going on? Looks like MMA atomweight champion Denise Mboganga. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Pardon me. But she's pulling out of the 173 card. Vadim Nemkov got re-signed. Justin Tafa's taking on a fight at UFC Perth. We got no native Perth fighters fighting, but Moicano allegedly wants Hooker or Patty Pimblett. But that will do it for me, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking out the show. We got a lot to talk about this weekend. We'll have some stuff to talk about tomorrow as well. But the big news today, of course, Psycho Stu. He's conscious. He's walking around. He's okay for now. Will he be back to normal functioning health? We'll have to just wait and see. I'm a little bit worried in terms of that. How much brain damage did he take? I hope that he will recover from that. Musharraf, thanks for jumping in here at the end, throwing in some comments. Definitely check out CJI. We got big stuff in the world of combat sports. UFC's off this weekend, but we're back with a big card. UFC Paris the week after. Imavov versus Caio Borralho. Very excited for that one. But who knows what's going to happen? What's going to happen the rest of the day? What's going to happen over the evening, over the night? What are we going to talk about tomorrow morning? That's going to be the question heading into tomorrow. But you guys, anybody out there watching this, have a great day. Have a great rest of this day. And I will see you next time. Again, have the best of best days. It's been a great stream. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Like, share, subscribe, do the thing. And I will see you again very, very soon.